Hey, all, and welcome to the Right Podcast. Now, I know this is going to be a little bit different, but I also realize that it's been a little while since I've created a video, so I wanted to get some content out there. And why not take this opportunity to introduce myself and what I hope to do with this channel moving forward. So first of all, why is this called the Right Podcast? Well, initially this was a podcast, and there was a podcast before the Right Podcast as well. Both ended up focusing on right-wing extremism, and my initial idea was really to focus on right-wing terrorism because I feel like it's something that is underrepresented, not only just in the news but in popular culture. Meaning, people know about Proud Boys and Trump now and MAGA, but people up the top of their head don't know, for instance, who Jim Atkinson is or Eric Rudolph. And I just find that interesting because there's just a litany of right-wing terrorists that had impacted the United States in such dramatic and horrific ways. So I did create some podcasts based on that. And then I started branching out into news items, seeing if that would fly. And I have a 40-hour job. I don't do this for money. I do this to get my opinions and information out to the world. So the news type or multiple shows per week scenario didn't work out. After reevaluating, I kind of went back to my roots and started creating some PowerPoints that were more lecture based. And that's what you've seen develop so far if you're one of the subscribers. And, within those roots of PowerPoints and lecturing, it's kind of the origin of my background here. So before I get into all of that, first, within the channel right now, the content is admittedly a little scattershot. It's a little bit everywhere. However, there are some fairly lengthy videos on both ultranationalism and extremism in Ukraine, as well as Russia and the Donbass region of Ukraine. Totally unexpected. These are just things that developed. And researching it, I've found a lot of great information moving forward. And right now, I'm looking at national Bolshevism as a topic to discuss, not only in the modern context, maybe of like the Vosh, Nazbol, Vortex type scenario, but going back to its roots in the early 1900s, the Weimar Republic, and then kind of getting into Nazi Germany, skipping ahead into the 90s and the post-Soviet era, and really doing a comprehensive study of it. All of these topics I have reasons for doing. However, I try to keep my opinions minimal or keep those reasons out of it. And, that's interesting because recently I had a kind of like a back and forth on Twitter with Tim Pool, who for a moment was authentic and really suggested that as opposed to covering people, maybe like critiquing him, right? Look at ideas. And I've actually created content on Tim Pool, and I'm not a huge fan, but I think that that's true. So within all of these broader things, Ukrainian nationalism, that's such a huge topic. There are reasons and ideas for doing that. And that's the same with national Bolshevism. And I'll get into that when I create that content. However, I really do strive, although I'm not perfect, but I do strive to keep my subjectivity and opinions out of these videos. However, I'm sure that if you go into these videos disagreeing, that you'll find things, perhaps a slip that I make, an oversight. Some of these videos are very long as well. So I don't claim to be perfect, but I do claim to be coming at this content in good faith. So with the content coming up, national Bolshevism, I will also continue doing these deep dives into right-wing terrorists, I think it's important. It's just a subject that feels lost in our cultural context, or the zeitgeist of understanding of what extremism is in the United States. There is an in-depth series of videos on Eric Rudolph, and I don't know, maybe I'll combine them and republish it. But right now, the idea was that this is like such a huge topic. I'm going to break it up into smaller pieces for people to see. I don't know if that's the best for the viewer or not. But Jim Akeson is someone I'd like to revisit, and there are many, many other folks too moving forward. But along with doing these deep dives into these individuals, I would like to continue with ideas. And it's interesting because going back into who I am, and I kind of stopped talking about PowerPoint lectures and et cetera. I have a degree in history, as well as a master's degree in social science. So this is my background, but I'm also an aging kind of punk. I dropped out of high school. I got my GED. I was working in a union job when I was 16 in food produce. So I think I bring a unique perspective to this, in that, yeah, I mean, I am well qualified. I have a lot of degrees and whatever, right? But also I come at this from a different perspective too, and I think that a lot of people who watch these videos come from similar type of perspectives, where you're seeking information. You're not necessarily on an inside track to get that information. And when you look at kind of established sources, you're skeptical regardless. So just from what I've seen in terms of the social media landscape and YouTube, there's just very few, I want to say objective sources, but I don't even know if objective is the right word. I think it's really, there's just very few good faith. It's almost as if the landscape is so barren in bad faith that there's a sense of equivalency, meaning that, everybody's BS. Mainstream media is BS. These alternative media personalities are BS. Twitter is BS. YouTube is BS. So, so we're all equally as horrible, meaning that we're all equally as, I don't know, genuine or correct or what have you in good faith. And that's just not true, right? So perhaps what I see is not so much lack of objectivity, because you can present facts and they can be accurate, but lack of good faith, meaning yeah, maybe there's like a news article, but how are you editorializing that? What narrative are you building around that? And that's where these just from my critique, that's where it falls apart. That's where the politics comes in. That's where the money, the grift comes in for the Patreon. And everybody has camps and angles, and everyone wants to debate instead of just taking a step back and maybe just learning and not worrying about where that's going to land you ideologically or politically in the conversation. So that's kind of like one camp, right? And then there's the other side of this that is very objective and has a lot of great facts and a lot of content, but is boring. I mean, and I'll admit this, I had undergrad in history, and there are times where I was bored to death just looking at names and dates too. Again, what brings the excitement, what brings the eyes and the audience are the narratives that you build, the editorializing, which is, again, also where people get into trouble. But if you have that the purely objective stuff, it's just you're going through that. We used to call it kind of like marching through the timeline, where it's just names and dates and names and dates, and it's boring, right? So there's something in between. There's something that isn't just, I don't know, like Jimmy Dore or Tim Pool or even Joe Rogan. That's, I mean, entertainment, right? It's very much entertainment versus a lot of great channels that I view on YouTube, but they're history. And if you want to know about well, are there Nazis in Ukraine? You don't necessarily care about like the colors of the uniforms in Polish occupied Ukraine, pre World War II, so there's this balance that I'm trying to meet here where you can have that cultural relevancy that someone like Dor or Poole might bring without that boring timeline of events, right? Or lecture, kind of history lecture, but also not all the baggage that comes with that, right? Not all the just junk that makes it entertainment and not actual, learning material. So in short, good faith discussion that's not boring, right? And so that's where I'm coming from. I hope I can merge these two worlds in a way that doesn't compromise both of them, and that could be the outcome to all of this. But anyway, let me know what you think. And if you have any content ideas, drop them here in the comments, let me know. I'll continue making these updates for videos in between these larger deep dives. I am knee deep in National Bolshevism ideology. I started in the 30s and now I'm back in the 20s and even the teens in some respect. However, I have been looking at some modern stuff too. It's a lot. I'm not going to be able to cover everything in one video, but hopefully I'll be able to create something in which you'll have an overview. And again, that's kind of the goal of all of these, is to have an overview of the content with good source material that is visible. I show you on the screen, trying to use research papers or websites from different parts of the world where these things are actually happening, translated through Chrome. And then just adding any kind of historical context that I have as well. So I'll keep doing these deep dives. I'll keep doing these videos. If you have ideas, again, let me know. And most of all, thanks for watching. Again, right now, I'm not doing this for money. I don't have a Patreon. I don't really care about, matching subscribers, which I probably don't need to care about with some of these larger YouTube channels. I'm here to instigate authentic conversation, instigate good faith conversation, and most of all, conversation. And it might sound funny because here I am talking to you in a computer screen, but hopefully these ideas showing point counterpoint, getting back to good faith discussion, which is a bit academically based, but again, in topics that are culturally relevant, things that you might see Joe Rogan talking about, for instance. Hopefully, we can sway the conversation back to something beyond just what we see today on social media. All right. Thanks, guys. The new video will be coming out in a few weeks, and who knows, maybe I'll post an update discussing my progress with that.